Hello and welcome back to the show. We are settling in for what I think is going to be a pretty pivotal conversation in our ongoing series.
It feels like a big one.
It does. And just to, orient everyone who has been following along, this is officially episode 49 of the Porter-Pedia podcast.
49. Wow. We are knocking on the door of 50. It really feels like a milestone.
It really does. And looking back at where we've been, if you were with us for the last one, we were firmly planted on the East Coast.
All New York.
We spent that entire hour obsessing over Cole Porter's life in New York City. We were, walking the halls of the Waldorf Astoria. We were sitting in those famous salons.
The Waldorf era. Yeah, that really was the epicenter of his whole New York identity.
Right. And the picture we painted was of a man who was, he was the king of his castle.
Absolutely.
It was all about sophistication, autonomy, and this kind of seamless blend of his life and his art. But today...
Well, today's different.
Today we are pivoting hard. We are leaving the island.
We're packing the Louis Vuitton trunks. We are hopping on a plane.
Which, frankly, I was surprised to learn he actually enjoyed doing.
Well, we'll get into why. But yes, we are heading to the other coast. Today is all about Porter's very complex, incredibly lucrative, and honestly, often deeply frustrating relationship with Hollywood.
It is such a study in contrasts. If New York was his home, his turf, the history we are looking at today describes his relationship with Hollywood very, very differently.
Oh, completely. He wasn't a resident there. Not in his mind. He was a visitor.
A visitor who stayed for months, sometimes years at a time.
True, but psychologically, he remained a visitor. The research describes him as having a traveler's habit of taking notes on the local customs.
Oh, like that.
But in Porter's case, he wasn't writing in a travel diary. He was taking notes in the form of melodies.
See, I like that image, but I have to push back on it a little bit.
Yeah.
It sounds romantic, right? The composer observing the natives. But was it actually that poetic? Because from what I've read preparing for this, Hollywood wasn't exactly a vacation for him.
No.
It sounds more like a battleground.
That is a much, much fairer assessment. It wasn't poetic detachment. It was survival. You have to understand, the Hollywood he was stepping into, this sunlit, regimented, and as one historian put it, perversely puritanical city, was a place that sharpened his mind precisely because it didn't fit him.
It rubbed him the wrong way.
Constantly. It was a constant source of friction.
Let's drill down into that friction right away.
Yeah.
Because there is this vivid metaphor used in the sources to contrast New York Porter versus Hollywood Porter.
Yes.
In New York, he's a Broadway composer. He's writing lyrics like a man polishing glass.
Bright, clean, and dangerous if you handled them carelessly. That is the description.
Right. He's the auteur. He's in complete control.
Yeah.
But then he lands in Los Angeles, and suddenly he's what?
Yeah.
A hired gun.
He becomes a celebrated import. And there is a massive, massive difference between an artist and an import.
An import is a commodity.
Exactly. In Hollywood, he is paid handsomely obscene amounts of money, which we will definitely get to. But his job description changes completely. He isn't building a show from the ground up. His job is to drop little gems into scripts that he didn't write, to fit schedules he didn't control, for producers who often didn't even understand what he was doing.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare for someone with his temperament. I mean, we've established over 48 deep dives that Porter was, to put it mildly, a bit of a control freak.
He had an aristocrat's temperament. He had an artist's weakness for autonomy. He hated being told what to do, especially by people he didn't consider his intellectual equals.
Which was most people.
Pretty much. And he drops himself into the studio system, which is the most hierarchical, rigid, factory-like environment in the entire creative world.
So the obvious question is, why? Why do it? If you're the king of New York, why go to the West Coast to be treated like a highly paid employee?
Well, that phrase, highly paid, is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
So it is just the money. That feels a little too simple for a man this complex.
It's never just the money, but the money is the foundation. It's the unavoidable starting point. We have to look at what's called the golden handcuffs.
The golden handcuffs.
The relationship between Porter and Hollywood was symbiotic. They needed each other, but for very, very different reasons.
Okay, let's start with Hollywood's side of the equation. Why were they so desperate for him? I mean, surely there were plenty of songwriters in Los Angeles who could write a catchy tune. Why import a Broadway snob?
Panic.
Yeah.
Pure and simple panic.
Panic about what?
We have to look at the timeline. This is the era of the talkies. Sound comes in and suddenly the studios are terrified.
Right, the technology changed everything overnight.
They have this new technology, but they don't know how to use it perfectly yet. They need content, They need music. But, and this is the key, they specifically needed songwriters who knew how to build a tune around a personality.
Because the stars were the franchise, not the stories.
Exactly. In the theater, the song is the franchise. The song has to be good enough to survive rehearsals, tryouts, critics. If a Porter song made it to a Broadway stage, it was bulletproof. It was structurally sound.
So Hollywood wanted to buy that reliability.
They wanted to buy insurance. The notes mentioned they wanted his continental polish and American snap.
It's a great line.
It's a great marketing pitch. They wanted classy. But here is where we need to be, a little cynical for a moment. We have to decode what classy meant to a Hollywood studio executive in the 1930s.
I'm guessing it didn't mean artistically pure or intellectually challenging.
Not even close. Not even in the same ballpark. In Hollywood, classy meant expensive and safe for a night out.
Dave.
They wanted the vibe of high society, the tuxedos, the champagne, the witty banter, but packaged for a mass audience in Kansas, Porter was perfect for that. He could write a love song that felt like an aphrodisiac. Really seductive. But then tidy it all up with a rhyme that sounded like a champagne cork popping. It felt dangerous, but it was contained. It was safe danger.
Okay, so Hollywood wants to buy his brand. They want to stick the Cole Porter label on their movies to make them feel expensive and sophisticated without actually being dangerous.
Precisely.
But let's flip it. Why does Porter want Hollywood? You mentioned he was an aristocrat. Why go to a factory town?
Pragmatism. Cold, hard pragmatism. We can't forget this is the 1930s. What is happening in the wider world?
The Great Depression.
The Depression is crushing the theater industry. Broadway was fragile. It was on its knees. Investors were disappearing. Shows were closing early. The box office was completely unpredictable.
But
Hollywood was thriving because they were selling fantasy at a cheap admission price. People might not have money for a $40 Broadway ticket, but they had a nickel for the movies.
So he went where the market was. He was hedging his bets against Broadway collapsing.
100%. And then there was the specific offer. In 1935, MGM summons him west. The offer was $75,000 for roughly 20 weeks of work.
Oh, hold on. Say that again. $75,000.
75 grand.
In 1935 money.
In 1935, let's just put that in context. The average annual income in America was maybe $1,500.
So he is being offered 50 times the average annual salary.
For 5 months of work.
That's astronomical. That is screw you money. You can't say no to that.
It was an absurd amount of wealth. It was very, very difficult to refuse, especially when the theater industry was on the ropes. But again, to your earlier point about his personality, it wasn't just the cash.
Okay.
He was drawn by the lifestyle for sure. The parties, the weather, which was restorative for his legs, especially later, and honestly, the professional challenge of it all.
The challenge of what? Writing jingles for movie stars.
The challenge of the moral straitjacket, as the source calls it. Could he be sophisticated inside a system that was terrified of scandal? That was a puzzle to him. It was a game.
Like seeing how much he could get away with.
Exactly. So his attitude was complex. He accepted the money, absolutely, but he privately reserved the right to roll his eyes at the whole thing.
I love that image. Taking the check with one hand and rolling his eyes with the other. It's so very Porter.
It is.
But let's talk about how that money translated into his actual life there. Because if you're making that kind of cash, you're not staying in a motel.
Definitely not. And this is where we see Porter trying to establish his dominance, his own kind of power. He didn't want to be seen as an employee. He wanted to be seen as a peer to the studio heads.
So where does he stay? What does he do?
He rents a house. And when I say house, he rents it from the silent film star Richard Barthelmess.
And when we say house,
we mean an estate, a mansion. We're talking manicured lawns, tennis courts, a swimming pool big enough to sail a boat in. This was a very symbolic choice.
How so?
He wasn't staying in a boarding house or a hotel like some writer for hire. He was entering the colony, that's what they call it, the film community, as a celebrity in his own right.
It's a power move. I can live like you, therefore I am you.
Precisely. He was signaling that he didn't need them. He was one of them.
But did it work? Because you mentioned earlier that there was a paradox here.
The studio paradox, yes. The lavishness was real. The pool was real, the money was real, but so was the contempt.
Contempt from whom? From the studio heads?
From the system itself, from the structure of Hollywood. You see, a Hollywood contract felt like a warm embrace until you realized it was actually a leash.
A very well-paid leash.
A golden leash, sure. But in New York or Paris or Venice, Porter lived in worlds where his social life and his artistic life were porous. They blended together.
Right, the salon culture. It's organic. You write a song at a party, you play it on the piano, it ends up in a show the next week.
But in Hollywood, there was a front office. There were gatekeepers, executives who didn't know a sharp from a flat, but they knew budgets and they knew demographics. And the terrifying thing for Porter was that whim was policy.
Explain that. Whim was policy. What does that mean in practice?
It means an executive could discard a project instantly just because they felt like it, or because they had a bad lunch, or because their mistress didn't like the lead actress. It was completely arbitrary.
So a commitment from a studio was just a fleeting desire.
That's the perfect way to put it. And remember, Porter was a man of control. He polished his lyrics like glass. Suddenly, he's dealing with this insane volatility where a project he worked on for weeks could just vanish into thin air. No explanation. Just gone.
That brings us to a specific moment where the stars actually aligned, though. Because despite all that volatility, there were moments where the machine actually worked.
Yes, Born to Dance.
1936. This seems to be the moment where the argument for Hollywood actually holds water.
Yeah.
This is the best case scenario.
It was the perfect assignment. He's at MGM, which was the classiest of the studios. He's working with a producer named Jack Cummings. Now, Cummings is important because the history books single him out as one of the few producers who actually respected the craft of songwriting.
He wasn't just ordering deli meat.
No, he wanted art. He understood what Porter did.
And look at the talent he's writing for. Eleanor Powell and James Stewart.
Eleanor Powell, who was a dancer of mythic precision, just a machine. And Jimmy Stewart, who is just emerging as a leading man. And Porter, he delivers. The score is described as a burst of confidence.
I'll say, you get Easy to Love, you get Swinging the Jinx Away, and then you get the masterpiece, I've Got You Under My Skin.
Yes.
Okay, we have to stop the car and get out and look at I've Got You Under My Skin. Because this isn't just a hit song. This is arguably one of the greatest songs ever written. The analysis calls it Porter's Hollywood thesis.
It is.
What does that mean? What's the thesis?
Think about the constraints we just talked about, the censorship, the need to be safe. I've Got You Under My Skin is the perfect, the most elegant solution to that problem.
How so?
It is erotic obsession disguised as composure.
Disguised as composure. Unpack that for me.
Nothing in the lyrics is explicit. He never says, I want to take you to bed. He never says, I'm losing my mind with lust. But everything is physical. The title itself, Under My Skin, it's invasive.
It's biological.
The melody itself, the way it moves, that long, sinuous line, it's described as moving like a hand deciding whether to caress or restrain.
Wow. That is such a visceral description. It's that tension, right? The holding back is what makes it so sexy.
Exactly. It's the suppression of the urge that creates all the heat. And that's why it works in Hollywood. It passes the censors because on paper, it's just a song about having a crush. It's perfectly polite. But the audience, you feel the obsession. You feel the danger in it.
And there's another layer here with this film that shows Porter's genius, which I found really surprising. It's the casting of James Stewart.
Ah, yes!
I was actually floored by this. I mean, I
Okay.
love Jimmy Stewart, but he isn't exactly Frank Sinatra. He's not a powerhouse vocalist.
No, he's a wobbly tenor at best. And apparently the studio wanted to dub him or replace him. They thought he was going to ruin the song.
Of course they did.
But Porter intervened. He fought for Stewart to have the song.
Why? Why would you fight for a guy who might butcher your masterpiece?
Because Porter wanted awkward sincerity.
Awkward sincerity.
He realized that if you have a polished, perfect singer do that song, it might sound too slick, it might sound calculated, maybe even a little fake. But if you have Jimmy Stewart stumbling a little, looking a little desperate, being vulnerable,
The lyric lands harder.
the lyric lands. He wanted the lead to carry the lyric without lying. And Stewart looked like a guy who was genuinely terrified of this feeling he was having.
That's a fascinating insight. We usually think of Porter as wanting everything to be glossy and perfect. But here he is favoring imperfection because it serves the emotion.
He understood that songs were designed to fit onto bodies, not just fill time. He was casting the song as much as he was writing it. He saw the whole picture.
But even here, in this peak moment, in this perfect situation, there was a catch, wasn't there?
Always. There's always a catch in Hollywood. Even with Born to Dance, Porter learned the hard lesson. The film exists to advance the stars, not the songs.
So even his best work was just background.
It was functional. If the camera angle didn't work on Eleanor Powell's legs, they'd cut the music. If the song didn't make the star look good, it was gone. He was still serving the machine.
And speaking of the machine, that's a perfect segue to the darker side of this arrangement. because Born to Dance was the exception, not the rule.
Well, very much the exception.
Usually, the experience was much more brutal. The outline uses the word cannibalization.
It's a brutal term, but it's accurate. Hollywood ate its own.
There's this story about the Gay Divorcee from 1934. Now, this was a massive hit stage show first. It was called The Gay Divorce. RKO buys the rights. You'd assume they bought it because they liked the show.
You would assume logic played some small part in the decision-making process, but this is Hollywood.
So what happens? They bring it to the screen and...
They kept only Night and Day.
Wait, what? One song. They bought a hit Cole Porter musical and threw out the music.
They threw out the entire score, everything. All the other songs he wrote for that show, just gone. Trashed.
Bait. Why? That seems so incredibly wasteful and, frankly, disrespectful.
It's cynical economics, pure and simple. The studios wanted proven hits, so they kept Night and Day because the public already knew it and loved it.
Okay, that part makes sense.
But for the rest of the film, they wanted new songs where they owned the publishing rights. They treated songs as interchangeable commodities.
Like widgets?
Exactly. We need a ballad here, a rhythm number here. It doesn't matter who writes it, as long as we own the copyright.
That must have been infuriating for Porter.
Yeah.
He builds these scores like architecture, everything fits together for a reason, and they just come in with a sledgehammer.
It was butchery, complete butchery. But here's the irony, and Porter's life is just full of these ironies. Hollywood mangled the score, but Night and Day became massive because of that film.
Because of Astaire and Rogers.
It launched Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers as a team. So Porter is in this bizarre position where the machine is destroying his art, but simultaneously making him more famous than he's ever been.
It's the devil's bargain. We will ruin your work, but we will make you a legend.
Exactly. And Porter, being the ultimate pragmatist, took the bargain. Every time.
There's another story that I think sums up this machine mentality perfectly. It's the telegram story.
Oh, the Radoff telegram. This is essential to understanding the difference between the creative process in New York and the process in L.A.
Set the scene for us.
So it's 1942. Porter arrives at Columbia Pictures for a new project. He knows almost nothing about the film he's supposed to be working on. No script, no characters, nothing.
He's just there.
He's there. And the director, a man named Gregory Radoff, sends him a wire to get him started.
And the wire says...
It says, and this is the direct quote, "Will you write a very optimistic song under the title Something to Shout About?"
Laughs. Just like that. Like ordering a pizza. One optimism, please.
Like ordering a ham sandwich. Make it optimistic and make sure the title is the catchphrase. No context, no character, no story, just a title and a mood.
It's so transactional. It's completely devoid of any artistic context whatsoever.
And it highlights that fundamental disconnect we've been talking about. On Broadway, you write toward character, you write toward dramaturgy. The song is part of a cumulative argument the show is making over 2.5 hours.
But in Hollywood...
You write toward a catchphrase, something to shout about. It's a slogan for the poster. It's marketing.
And did he do it? Did he write the slogan?
Of course he did. He was a professional. The records show he was a machine producing optimism on demand. He might have resented the lack of artistic depth in the request, but he cashed the check and he wrote the song.
This idea of writing on demand to a slogan... It brings us to the concept of adaptation. Because Porter didn't just survive Hollywood. He changed his writing style to fit it. The notes talk about something called portability.
This is a crucial technical shift in his work. Because the films were so disjointed, and because he knew songs could be cut or moved or sung by different characters at a moment's notice, Porter had to learn to write songs that were portable.
Meaning they could work anywhere in any movie.
Almost. Meaning they had to function as standalone moments, detached from the specific narrative. They couldn't be too tied to the plot because the plot might change while he was at lunch.
Can you give us a good example of one of these portable songs?
The best one is You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To.
Okay.
It was written for that same film, Something to Shout About. Now look at the context. It's 1942. The world is at war.
Right. Millions of soldiers are overseas.
And the song sounds like the ultimate expression of wartime yearning. You'd be so nice to come home to. Every soldier, every wife, every mother felt that exact emotion. It tapped into the national mood perfectly.
Why?
Look at the lyrics closely. Does he ever mention the war?
No, I guess not.
Does he mention a battlefield? Does he mention the Nazis? No. He describes a door, a room, a fire. It's generic enough to be about anyone, anywhere, in any era. That is portability.
Yeah.
It passes the studio filters, it fits in the movie, but it has this emotional directness that connects with the real world, which makes it timeless.
It's genius, really. It's specific in emotion, but completely vague in detail.
Which ensures it has a life long after the movie is forgotten, and most of them were.
Now, we touched on this earlier, but I want to go deeper into the censorship aspect. The production code. The notes argue that censorship was actually a creative tool for Porter. That sounds completely counterintuitive. Usually we think of censorship as the death of creativity.
It's the necessity is the mother of invention argument. And in Porter's case, I think the censorship genuinely sharpened him. We have to remember the production code, the Hays Code, was strictly enforced after 1934.
Right. No open-mouth kissing, no suggestion of illicit affairs, no crime pays, all the fun stuff.
Exactly. Now, think about Porter's classic Broadway style. It relied entirely on the wink, the double entendre, the clever suggestion that these wealthy people are about to go do something very naughty in the guest bedroom.
And Hollywood punished that.
They punished it severely. You couldn't wink. The censors had absolutely no sense of humor. They were looking for trouble.
So what do? If you can't make the joke, how do you keep the Porter flavor?
You transfer the erotic charge, you take it out of the explicit lyrics, and you put it into the phrasing and the melody. You make the music feel like desire.
Like we talked about with Under My Skin.
Exactly that. It forced him into what the sources call a classical economy. He couldn't rely on a dirty joke or a clever rhyme to carry the scene. He had to build the seduction into the very architecture of the song. The code, which was designed to civilize him and make him safe, actually made him a more subtle, sophisticated writer.
That is such a cool perspective.
He learned to say more by saying less. The restriction forced the innovation.
Like the frame makes the painting better.
It happens so often in art.
Now, we have to be honest. Not everything he touched turned to gold. Not by a long shot.
Yeah.
There were failures, and there were some very weird accidents.
The compost heap.
I love that term. The idea that nothing goes to waste.
Well, the reality of Hollywood was that many projects just died on the vine. The notes mention films like Stardust and Adios Argentina. Porter would work for weeks, sometimes months, write beautiful music, and then nothing. Killed by the front office. Project shelved.
For most people, that would be heartbreaking. All that work for nothing.
For Porter, he salvaged. He never wasted anything. If a song got cut from a movie, he put it in his trunk and saved it for Broadway.
Give us an example of a salvaged hit. A famous one.
I get a kick out of you.
No way. That's quintessential Broadway. That's anything goes.
It actually came from an abandoned film score. He pulled it out of the wreckage, polished it up, put it into Anything Goes, and suddenly it's one of the great American standards. He was the ultimate recycler.
But the best story, the one that really blows my mind, and I still have a hard time believing it, is Don't Fence Me In.
Yeah. Oh, this is the ultimate irony of his entire Hollywood career. It's perfect.
Walk us through this, because when I think Cole Porter martinis, tuxedos, the Waldorf Astoria, I do not think cowboy anthems.
No, you don't. And neither did he. That's what makes it so funny. So the story goes, a producer suggests a Western tune, just a throwaway idea for some movie.
Right?
Porter gets some material sent to him by a Montana cowhand named Bob Fletcher.
A real cowhand, not a screenwriter pretending to be one.
A real guy in Montana who wrote cowboy poetry. Porter buys the rights to the poem for a flat fee, and the history suggests he treated the whole assignment almost as a joke.
He was slumming it?
He was having fun with it. He packed it with every Western cliche he could think of. Give me land, lots of land, starry skies, cayuse. He's laying it on thick. He's basically doing a caricature of a cowboy song.
So he's mocking the genre while writing for it.
I think he's just amused by the absurdity of it. So he writes it, and then the movie it was meant for gets canceled. It gets shelved. Nobody uses it for years.
Into the compost heap it goes.
Exactly. Then, years later, 1944, Hollywood is making a wartime morale booster film called Hollywood Canteen, and they dig this song up.
And who sings it in the movie?
Roy Rogers, the king of the cowboys.
Okay, so you have the king of the cowboys singing a song written by the most sophisticated man in New York who wrote it as a gag.
And then Bing Crosby records it.
What happens?
It explodes. It becomes one of the biggest hits of the year, of the decade. Sheet music sales hit 1 million. Record sales hit 1 million. It becomes this massive national anthem about freedom and open spaces during wartime.
That is absolutely incredible. So the sophisticated urban Cole Porter makes a fortune on a cowboy song he wrote as a joke assignment years earlier.
It's the perfect lesson of Hollywood. It offered delayed wildfire. Broadway was immediate. You open, you hit, or you miss, right then and there. Hollywood could take a song you wrote 10 years ago that you forgot about, put it in the right scene with the right star, and suddenly it's the biggest song in the country.
It really emphasizes how little control he had, though, in a way. He couldn't predict what would hit. He just fed the machine.
He fed the machine, and occasionally the machine spat out a jackpot.
No, we've talked a lot about the business. Let's talk about the people. Because even though he was a visitor, he had his circle. He wasn't a hermit.
No, he was extremely social. And his professional friendships in Hollywood were very specific. He gravitated toward people who understood his aesthetic. Fred Astaire is mentioned over and over as the ideal interpreter for Porter.
Why Astaire? Astaire had a thin voice, too, like Stewart.
But he had impeccable rhythm, and more importantly, he had dryness.
Dryness.
Astaire was musically intelligent, but he didn't sentimentalize the lyrics. He didn't make it mushy or overly emotional. He delivered it straight, crisp, elegant. That is exactly what Porter's lyrics need. You don't need to add sugar to a Porter song. It's already sweet enough. Astaire got that.
And then there's Katharine Hepburn.
The great Kate Hepburn. They were very close friends. There's a wonderful anecdote about her calling Porter to ask for a song for the movie Adam's Rib.
She just picks up the phone and calls Cole Porter for a song.
That's how it worked in that circle. They were peers. But here's the quintessential Porter touch. She wanted a song for the character whose name in the script was originally Madeline.
Okay.
Porter refused.
He refused to write for the name Madeline. Why on earth?
Because of the phonetics. He was fussy about syllables. He didn't like the sound of Madeline for the melody he had in his head. It didn't scan right. The vowels were wrong. He suggested Amanda.
So he expects the studio to change the script of a major motion picture because he likes the sound of Amanda better.
And they did.
No way. They changed the character's name for him.
They changed the name to Amanda. That is the power of Cole Porter. But it also shows his other side. The royalties from that song, Farewell Amanda, went entirely to the Damon Runyon Cancer Fund.
Wow.
It shows he was difficult about the art, changed the name, but generous with the results.
We also have to talk about his lifestyle as a commuter artist, because he wasn't just in Hollywood. He was constantly bouncing back and forth.
He was an early adopter of air travel. And this wasn't just for luxury. It was partly a physical necessity. Remember, after his riding accident in 1937, his legs are crushed. He's in constant, excruciating pain.
Right.
Sitting on a train for 4 days was agonizing. Flying was faster and easier on his condition.
But it also sort of fit his identity, right? Being airborne, unattached.
It did. He lived in multiple cities, but none of them fully contained him. He was always in motion. He was a citizen of the world, which really meant he was a stranger everywhere he went.
And the person who managed all that motion, the person who kept the wheels on the bus, so to speak, was Linda, his wife.
Linda Lee Thomas Porter. We
Yeah.
cannot tell the Hollywood story without her. She is central to his survival there.
The history books get a little complicated here. The outline says Los Angeles was built on heterosexual performance. That is a very heavy phrase.
It's heavy, but it's accurate. The studios sold romance. They sold the dream of the nuclear family, the dashing husband and the adoring wife. Cole Porter was a gay man. Linda knew this. It was a marriage of companionship, partnership, and deep mutual respect.
But in Hollywood, the pressure to perform that marriage must have been intense.
Oh, unbearably intense, because if the truth came out,
The career is over.
the contracts would be canceled, the moral clause in the contracts would destroy him overnight. So Linda wasn't just a wife, she was a shield. She was his co-conspirator.
She wasn't just a passive observer then, or a victim.
Far from it. She was a formidable collaborator and strategist. She understood the social world of the studios better than Cole did. She provided what the sources called the cleanliness of story that Hollywood required. She hosted the parties, she managed the press, she protected his private life from collapsing into public scandal.
It sounds absolutely exhausting for her.
It was. The notes say the strain on their marriage in Hollywood wasn't about jealousy. She accepted his lifestyle. It was about logistics. The sheer exhaustion of maintaining privacy in a town that traded in exposure. She was his anchor in a very stormy, very shallow sea.
And she helped maintain the myth, which leads us to the ultimate myth-making machine, the biopic.
Night and Day, the 1946 Warner Bros. Film,
Starring Cary Grant as Cole Porter.
which is already a huge compliment.
I mean, if anyone is going to play you in a movie, you want it to be Cary Grant.
Yeah.
But the historians are clear. They call this film a distortion.
It was Hollywood's highest compliment. They turned him into a handsome, heterosexual fable.
A fable.
They sanitized everything, the bohemia, the queerness, the pain, the complexity, all of it just washed away. In the movie, he's just a dashing war hero who writes songs for his one true love, Linda.
It's fiction.
It's total fiction from start to finish.
And Porter let them do it. He didn't fight for the truth of his own life.
He cooperated. Again, he was pragmatic. He understood that if they were going to make a movie about him, he wanted it to be successful. He wanted the song catalog to sell. He wanted to influence the myth, even if he knew it wasn't the truth. He understood how fables worked.
It's amazing. He's watching them rewrite his life in real time, erasing his actual identity, and he just thinks, well, at least it's Cary Grant.
And at least the check's cleared. He knew the difference between a movie and a life. He always did.
Always the pragmatist. So we're reaching the end of our journey here. We've covered the money, the songs, the censorship, the myths. How do we synthesize all this? What is the final takeaway on Cole Porter and Hollywood?
I think the key is in how he viewed the system itself. He found it exasperating, yes, infuriating even, but also interesting, like watching a machine break and then fix itself over and over. He didn't let it crush him.
The notes say Hollywood didn't get art from him intentionally. They asked for output.
That's it, exactly. They asked for a product. Give me an optimistic song. Give me a cowboy song. He gave them the output they paid for, but he made it art in spite of their requests. He smuggled the art in through the back door.
And eventually, he left. He didn't stay forever.
No, he didn't. He took the money, he kept his standards, and he went back to Broadway to write Kiss Me, Kate. And the research makes a beautiful point here. Broadway gave him the evening-length canvas. It gave him full control. Hollywood never could. Hollywood only gave him moments.
He needed the full evening to tell his story. He couldn't do it in 3-minute snippets.
Exactly. He needed the context. He needed the architecture.
So as we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with this one provocative thought from the deeper analysis of the history. It says, Porter never stopped sounding like a man who knew the difference between being celebrated and being understood.
That really resonates. In Hollywood, he was celebrated. He was famous. He was rich. But understood? I don't think so. I don't think they ever got him. The songs were the only place where he truly told the truth, even if it was disguised as a melody.
A visitor to the end.
To the very end.
Well, that wraps up our exploration of Cole Porter's Hollywood years. Episode 49 is in the books. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time for the big episode 50.
Can't wait for that one.
Bye, everyone.